I would like to emphasize the double measures that are applied in Syria before entering in the matter of the chemical weapons. In the beginning of the month of August, there was a terrible massacre that happened in the region of the mountains of Latakia. Mr. Bahar Kim Yong-gur will underline and get into more details about these terrible massacres. I am sure that many of you did not even hear about this massacre. During one night, Al-Qaeda fighters, they have confirmed that it was their deeds. They invaded 12 villages among the Alawite villages, perpetrating a real massacre, ethnical cleansing, with beheadings, atrocities committed against women, being cut in pieces alive with jigsaws, being raped, of course, and men being beheaded, defiled, and children also. Here we have, you will see it, the names of around 400 people that died during those invasions. The problem is that nobody uttered one word about it, just a 4 lines article in the Independent. No General Assembly, no any council has met in New York to look how to protect those innocent people. You know, in the 21st of August, something happened in the East Ghouta with many footages, videos, that as every time during the Syrian revolution, we are inundated with this virtual media coverage. Immediately, in less than 24 hours, the Supreme Council was held in New York, and many measures until today. We are on the eve maybe of a 3rd World War because of this. I do not oppose to take very severe measures to protect civilians, but I am just asking, the civilians in East Ghouta, are they from another origin or from another essence than the civilians in Latakia? This is my question. And normally, during all this ugly war in Syria, that was accompanied ad nauseam by some powers in the international community, we have always seen that a part of the population was very precious, a part of the conflict is authorized, is credible, and the other part, even though we are treating with 60 to 65% of the population, is demonized, is ignored, and of course is left to its own fate, like we see now with the Christian community following the Alawite communities and others that are completely trusted, given to hordes of barbarian mercenaries that are invading their villages, even though Ma'lula is the most ancient Christian village with precious world heritage, They invaded, and they say it is to protect the population. It is, I think, a very strange way to protect population when you invade a village to defile its religious symbol, to abduct the inhabitants, or to behead them, or just to execute them summarily on the ground. And all this without any word being uttered from those who are, you know, facing the world with a hypocrite concern about the civilian population. So now I will enter in the purpose of my intervention to see how it is possible that the international laws and the humanitarian international laws, that here we have experts that are discussing and exposing their very nature, how is it possible that those laws cannot interfere to put the real hierarchy in the way the international community is addressing such an ambiguous event? I say it's ambiguous, and I will try to show you why for me it is ambiguous. I live in Syria since 20 years. And especially those times, those 2 years, I have been mostly living in Damascus and heading an NGO that works for reconciliation inside the Syrian civilian society. I am called to go and visit all the parties everywhere, let them be in loyalist regions or in rebel-held regions. So I have received, as all of you, the statement of CNN, you know, that is talking about the official documentation that have been proposed to the Intelligence Committee inside the Senate to consider the reality and the evidences of a real chemical attack on the East Ghouta and the responsibility of the Syrian government. They have nominated 13 videos, and those videos are among the first that have been uploaded. Only the 8th video dates from the 22nd of August. You know, during those days, just before the 21st of August, I was in Damascus. And I have to tell you that since the 18th of August, we have heard bombardment held by the Syrian legal forces on the East Ghouta with a density that I have never, ever experienced. And going out from Syria, the 20th of August, I have seen thousands of people from East Ghouta fleeing the bombardment. So the first thing that held my attention in the statement of the United States Commission is the dysfunction between the geography and the demography on the ground in the East Ghouta and the way the footages are presenting the flow of victims, the movement of the medical teams, and the conclusions that, they arrive to 10,000. It's the conclusion of the Unified Medical Team of East Ghouta. They concluded after a few days of this event that 10,000 people were immediately injured by the attack, the so-called chemical attack. 3,000 heavily injured, and 1,466 dead. So I would like, first of all, to stop with you concerning the reality of the dense population there. Here we have a little boy called Abdullah. He has been interviewed and by the rebels in the opposition. It's a local coordination committee who is interviewing him. He has been deprived from his parents who died during the chemical attack. So they are asking Abdullah, where have you been? What did you experience, etc. And he lost, sadly, his parents and his brothers and sisters during the attack. So the interviewer asked him a question. And did you lost your friends? Did you lost your neighbors? So as you see here, he said, no, I didn't lose any friends and any neighbor because most of them have already left or are refugees. This is what this young boy is saying to confirm what I am, considering a fundamental fact, a basic fact. So the number of casualties and the flow of victims, as I could see it, as I can, conclude from the density that is really scarce and dispersed in these, in those regions that make following the impact, as it is said, especially in the Human Rights Watch report, 13 square miles. It's really improbable that the medical team could work and select and bring. So this is what I am asking. So let us see. First of all, let us make a tour on the so-called attacked regions where you have the supposed victims. You will see that they are devastated regions because since the first and the second battle of Damascus, those regions are a battleground infiltrated with more than 20,000 mercenaries, and there is a permanent conflict. So the civilians are environment supportive, a supportive environment to the rebels. They are sometimes their own families, but it's not like a normal urban society. It's, we can say, an urban society which is lacking of many of its elements. So you have here Jobar. You see how the rebels are inside, I think, all the buildings. They make like tunnels. I will show you now, first of all, Jobar, because it's a real center of the attacks. Even the schools, you don't have schools. So I don't know how children are still there. Here you have Erbin, عين ترمى, معدمية, دوما, زملكة, كفر بطنة. The inhabitants are mostly males and to be identified with rebels or armed opponent. Not everybody, of course, but in a very big majority. Second, for myself, I have big concern, and I will raise the question with the international authorities and the Human Rights Council. What about the children? You see, is it possible for me, when someone goes to rescue families that are suffocated, how could they leave the parents and bring the children? You have here children, sometimes from the same age, look here, it's the same age. I don't know which family have 4 or 5 children the same age. So where are their parents? My question, where are their parents in this very night? My first supposition, the parents were dead and the children were not. So the children were rescued. Then here we will have a rate of women that are dead, that will be equilibrated with the number of children that are dead. Second supposition, the parents were safe, the children were dead. How is it possible for me to carry out the children that are dead and to leave the parents that are not dead, and we don't see those parents weeping on their children, or at least nearby their children? Because of course, in an Oriental society, if my child is dead, I won't let him in a common, grave. I will go and take him in my arms. I will weep, I will mourn. It will be a whole ceremony. So there is something that is very weird in the way, not in the, maybe in the moment, there might be a hurry and something like, savage. But afterwards, we cannot consider that those children are just like a bunch, one over the other, and nobody is caring, even if they are sadly dead. The third supposition, the parents were dead and the children were dead, but the children were selected for what? I put here for propaganda, but maybe I should not. So there are, these are heavy questions, okay, that I am asking myself, because there is another logistic problem that is raising. The so-called survivors, the parents, survivors' parents, that are seeking for their children or relatives. This is also a big problem. For example, we see here a father, holding their 2 daughters and weeping, and then he put them on the ground with the collective grave. So why is he alive? Why did he bring them there? If they are dead, why did he left them on the ground? I have many questions. What is happening? Second, here we have a young father. He is in his own house. And they bring him his boy in good health. And there is a whole video. I have, of course, all the documentation. A whole video of the encounter between the father and the little boy. Here also, we are asking ourselves a lot of questions. Why this young man who is healthy, why is he still in his house? Why is he waiting for his boy in his house? And how is it possible that the rescuer came to bring the boy who was alive and not without the father who was alive? And then why to bring them back? And we have a very romantic, encounter, but it is, for me, a luxury in a moment like this to make it. I have many questions concerning the honesty of such a footage. Mainly because in the background where they are sitting, there are many motorcycles. And so they are sitting in a place that is made like a salon, like a lobby, but in reality it's the entrance of a building, and the motorcycles in Syria are for the males that works, but also for the fighters. So we are here on a sofa that have been brought maybe for the screening, maybe for the featuring, I don't know. Here we have another people screaming, okay, and bringing children that are not their children. We have especially this one. We have discovered here he is talking that this girl is his own child, how she wanted to eat just before the attacks, how her mother was feeding her and now she is dead. But we were very surprised that we find the same man with a team of rescuers saying the same thing with another bodies, with another corpse. So I don't think that if a man has lost his child, he will have the heart to go to help and to make another screening, another featuring as we see. Here is this one coming to find out a family, and we see the family. It's maybe the unique family that is together, to tell you that they could bring families together, and that's why we are asking why so many children without their families, and what about parents that are without their children and searching for their children. Here we have a woman. We see in all the footages maybe 2 or 3 women. So this woman is saying, I am trying to find out where is my boy. Now, also the problem is that the adults in those videos are all of them completely dressed. Let them be dead, injured, or alive. Now we know that the attacks happened between 1:55 after midnight and 3 to 4 after midnight. So people, were sleeping. And we know that in Syria, when they sleep, they don't sleep with their dress. They do not sleep with their belt. They do not sleep with their shoes or their boots. And they do not sleep on the soil without anything. So we have a problem because many people, all of them, when they are not, where they are not completely naked because of the so-called, to clean them with water, they are dressed. Here you will see this woman, she's in gray. We see her in 5 or 6 videos. She's always searching for one of her children, and sometimes finding him and giving a place for a very maternal encounter. But it's very weird, and we don't know how it is possible that the mother is alive and that each one of her children is somewhere. One is in Arbin, one is in Zamalka, etc. Here you have her, Here you have her. Here you have her. Here you have her. Now, I would like also to emphasize the transport means. In the neighborhood of those places that were allegedly attacked with chemical weapons, we have people that are living nearby those places. They did not hear ambulances, maybe 1 or 2 ambulances during the whole day. Second, the gas did not arrive to their neighborhood, while sometimes it is not far, more than 50 meters, like Jobar and the Abbasid Square, or Kashkul and Ain Tarma, maybe a little bit more. You see here a car coming and inside you have only one girl, one little girl. About the symptoms, we have seen the footage, but we have also seen that if 20 to 50 people, they put on them the camera and they seem with some symptoms, hundreds of others, we don't see any symptoms, and I also raised this question. So to finish my intervention, I would like to ask the Security Council, to ask here the Human Rights Council, to try to find out who are the children that were dead in Syria. Because the medical team said that 67% of the victims are women and children. The reality, as we see it in the video, is that 60% are children, 45% are males, normally between 18 to 35 years old, and only 1% are women. So how is it possible for me to see so many children in those regions? And in the grave, we see one grave that has been taken into a video. In this grave, we see only 8 corpses. So where are those children? Who are their families? We didn't hear in the neighborhood that funeral had occurred, that families are mourning their dear one, maybe someone, but not the 1,466. It's a big problem, it's a big question, because those people, either they were not dead, and it's a good news, but it's a manipulation, now we have to see. Second, if they are dead, is it from the chemical attacks? How is it possible to find so many children without their mothers, little children? Third, if they are dead but not through the chemical attacks, we are facing a real genocide, a real crime against humanity. That's why under the humanitarian international law, I would like to raise an appeal to go there, to find where those children are buried, to have their DNA, to meet their families, and to be sure whom they are. Because many families in the Latakia region are alleging that they have seen their children abducted, because after the massacres, 250 Alawite were abducted from the Latakia mountains, and among them a lot of children. Many families are alleging that their children, they saw them in those footages. In all cases, we cannot confirm, but I raised the question, whom are those little ones? Why are they there in devastated regions without their mothers? And I would like to go until the end of an inquiry which is by essence humanitarian, and it will serve to shed more light on this very ambiguous subject. Thank you.